One day after Senator Joe Manchin met with the Texas Democrats who fled their state to block the voter suppression bill in Texas being proposed by Republicans, the ones who are begging Congress to act, well, we have some action. Joe Manchin apparently headed to Texas, not for the whole voting rights thing. Instead, the Texas Tribune reported today that Senator Joe Manchin, key Democratic holdout on federal voting protections, or at least ending the filibuster to get them, is coming to Texas for a fundraiser hosted by several GOP donors. Joining me now, the former mayor of San Antonio, who also served in the Obama administration as Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Julian Castro. Obviously, politicians have to raise a lot of money. They go to a lot of places to raise money, but there is something a little ironic about this. What's your reaction?
I mean, Chris, this is like one of those things that you just shake your head. And I mean, why in the world is Joe Manchin coming to Texas when he has Texas Democrats up there in D.C. begging him, asking him to put more effort into finding a solution, whether it's on the filibuster or some sort of voting rights legislation. And he's the holdout right now, preventing the protection of voting rights, especially for communities of color. If you were going to come to Texas, I wish that you were coming to Texas to listen to so many people who either have been or will be impacted by these types of voter suppression bills that Republicans are putting through, because there's so many stories to hear. Instead of that, he's going to be at a high-priced fundraiser by a whole bunch of oil and gas executives. It's a terrible look for Joe Manchin. I think it sends the wrong signal, not only to those Texas Democrats who are fighting hard for federal legislation and to stop the Texas legislation. It sends a wrong message about what Democrats should be about.
Yeah, we should note, you just said something also important here, I think, substantively. Right now, we've got this huge reconciliation package, the infrastructure bill. There's a big question about how aggressive it will be in the climate aspects. And here you have what would be the 50th vote for this. As the Texas Tribune reports, the host committee includes titans of the Texas oil and gas industry, many of whom donate almost exclusively to Republicans. Some of these donors make occasional contributions to Democrats who are either moderate or serve on committees with oversight of the energy sector. It gives you a little window into what the sort of climate hawk forces are up against.
Oh, it does. And I mean, Manchin's there chairing the Energy and Natural Resources Committee in the Senate. The letter that went out, the fundraising letter, said that Joe Manchin has been a good friend of the industry since he was governor of West Virginia. And I'm sure it's going to get a lot of buy-in from oil and gas executives. And the way that this ties into the voting rights part of it is, I bet what they're telling Joe Manchin at this high-priced fundraiser is, hey, look, Senator, you really are the reasonable guy here in the Senate. You're the only thing holding back the world from AOC and the socialists and X,
right.
Y, and Z. They're going to butter him up and make him think, hey, you got to hold the line. And politicians tend to over-listen to people that are giving them thousands and thousands of dollars. We all know that. We've seen that a million times. And so this couldn't come at a worse time for those who care about having substantive legislation that addresses climate change or legislation that protects voting rights.
It also sort of points to the difficulty the Democrats have, right? Because the Senate is in the current demographic configuration of the Democratic coalition. The Senate tilts towards Republicans. Joe Manchin is a bit of a unicorn in that he's able to get reelected in a state that Donald Trump won by 30 points. There's no way around being dependent on senators who are going to be representing states whose median voter is well to the right of the center of the Democratic caucus.
No, that's true. I mean, you also have to give Joe Manchin the credit that he deserves on a lot of votes that take place day in and day out, where he does side with Democrats. And would we rather have Joe Manchin there than a Republican who's going to be voting with all of the Republicans? Of course. At the same time, the danger, especially when it comes to the issue of voting rights, is if you allow this voter suppression, this point shaving out there in state after state, including my home state of Texas, then the Joe Manchins are not going to be there anymore. And not only that, you're going to lose places like Georgia and Arizona that were hard fought and barely won.
Final question for you on some late breaking news today. A federal district judge in your state of Texas, a appointee of George W. Bush, has essentially ruled that the DACA protections issued by the Obama administration all the way back, I believe, in 2012, are essentially unlawful. He has not suspended DACA per se, but he's issued, I understand, an injunction for any further applications. This is for people who are brought to the United States as children, as minors, who can apply for a sort of protected status. It's not full citizenship, but it does give them a sort of path to citizenship. I got to imagine this is brutal for all the folks subject to this because it just creates more tension, pressure, and uncertainty. Your reaction to that ruling?
It's a gut punch. It just creates that uncertainty, that feeling in the stomach for so many families out there who have somebody who is on DACA. As you said, it doesn't affect people who are currently on DACA, but it does put a pause on new applications being approved. And just to give you a sense, Chris, since January, 50,000 people have applied for DACA. So this is not a small number. On top of that, the Biden administration is entering very deep and treacherous political waters on immigration. This is a president that came in saying, we're not going to make the mistake of the past of 2009. We're actually going to get something done on immigration. And so far, mostly what he has done is not been Donald Trump. But when it comes to something like relatively low-hanging fruit, even DACA, there's not a permanent solution. They need to change that. And this is a powerful reminder of that.
We should note that some pathway to citizenship is currently included in the big reconciliation package. We'll see if that continues, but that was striking to me that was in there. That's something to keep your eyes on. Julian Castro, thanks for joining us tonight.